Hello and welcome back to the Breakers Breakdown podcast, hosted by Henry Lee and Logan Angove. Welcome back, Logan. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, thank you. Back here, episode 3, so let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm your host Henry Lee, back with another episode. It's been a busy couple of weeks in the NBL. There's been lots happening, lots going on. I'm doing good. I'm hoping that you're doing good as well. But let's get into the Breakers' last game that they played, the first game after the last episode. Sorry, the Tasmania Jack Jumpers at home. It was a good win. It was a good win at Spark Arena, which was I think one of the main things about it is the fact that it was at Spark Arena and we got the win. What did you think about that? What were your key takeaways?
Yeah, first of all, it was a great win. First win in a while, really. But the big thing was for me was PJC's return. Obviously, most of us probably thought he'll come out hot as, but he only had the 8 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. When really the person who showed up and took us all by surprise was Mennenga. And yeah, what do you think about his performance?
Yeah, I thought he was amazing. Obviously, like the 29 points that he had, 21 in the second half, but just his effort on the defensive end as well, and offensive end. He's a threat when he gets going. I think when he sets a screen and then he comes off, picks and pops, and then the defender has to come up because they know he can shoot the three ball. And I think he did well at kind of faking out the opponent as well, sometimes driving, ripping and driving as well. I thought he was exceptional. But big thing about it for me was that he was dominating. Like he wanted it, he was showing effort. And for me, that's the biggest thing as a Breakers fan that I wanted to see. I want to see effort. I want to see defensive plays. I want to see rebounding. And I kind of have missed that from our big man this year. I think Taco's brought lots of stuff to the table, but I think effort hasn't been one of them. And I'm glad to see that Mennenga's bringing the effort because that's what the Breakers fans ask for. That's what we really ask for, if I'm being honest. Just lots of effort, lots of high effort players, and the points will come with it, right? So I was really
Yeah,
impressed with
and
him. What did you think about PJC?
oh, firstly, just on Meninga, I think his great performance kind of that's probably why Taco was quite quiet this game and didn't get minutes because you like you said, when he's like going off, we're just gonna keep feeding it to him. When he's confident he can get any bucket he wants, and it's hard to take him out of the game when he's kind of doing things like that and ends up with 29 points at the end. But PJC, I thought he was a little bit rusty. He hasn't been playing in about 5 games, it was, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
he did contribute quite a lot. He had a few quick turnovers in the first, couple minutes or so. But I think it was kind of expected if you thought about it deeply.
I think PJC, it was an interesting one because he wasn't affecting the game as kind of he probably would have liked. I think that he was working hard. Obviously, he was normal South, quick, was getting out in transition, had a couple of points, probably not as many points as he would have liked, but I think he was still effective. And at the end of the day, we got the win. That was the thing that we needed, and that's what he got us the win. I'd say that his return kind of got us the win in that one. His effect, the way he was pushing the ball, the way he was carrying himself, and those big minutes in a guy that is dangerous like that for Tasmania, it would have been a nightmare to try stop him. So even though I thought they did a good job, they probably didn't limit him to enough usage on like affecting the game other than just scoring. I think that they would have liked the way that they kept him to only 8 points. But for me, the way he got to his spots, made handoffs, stuff like that, dimes as well to Meninga and Mooney and stuff. I think that was how he was effective against Tasmania. I think it was an all-round better performance, let's be real there. But another thing for me was Kareem Lopez, again, another positive performance. He struggled for about a month throughout the season, but then I think he's been really good in the last couple of weeks. What do you think about Kareem? We'll get onto his next game as well, but what do you think of Kareem in the last couple?
Yeah, he's kind of just gone straight up, hasn't he? Last few games. He started quite hot. It's got him better again this game here. And it's kind of just it's great to see, a young kid only 17 the kind of like talent he has, and to think that he's going to be here next year as well with us is pretty exciting. He could be a star of the Breakers team, and it's pretty interesting to wait and see what's going to happen with him next year, how much of a leap he'll take.
Yeah, I completely agree. What do you think of how we took advantage of Tasmania's lack of big man, obviously without Will Magnate? How do you think we took advantage of that?
Yeah, I think again, just feeding Mennenga, like when he got hot, we didn't stop. We just kept going to what was working, and they ended in him shooting 13 or 15 from the field, which is 87%, and that's pretty ridiculous if you ask me. With also 3 out of 4 from the 3-point line, it's not like he didn't shoot much as well. Like 15 shots is a pretty big sample size. So I think him having a huge game is why we took advantage of Magnay, and it just shows from Sam Mennenga's stats.
I think that another thing that I thought about was Matt Mooney's way he kind of held himself in this game. I was impressed with his 11 points, 11 assists, the way he just maneuvered the way that he was playing, switched his game mode from being that dominant scorer because he was feeding the hot hand, feeding Meninga. And I think that that was really pleasing to see, the fact that Matt Mooney was able to keep his cool and find the right option at this specific time. I think in that game against Tasmania, the right option was to keep feeding Sam Mennenga, keep passing the ball, which seemed to be working, and still being effective on the floor and making really big plays on the defensive end. Like I've got this written down here, his defensive work, stealing the ball from opponents, has been impeccable this year. I've really liked the way he's handled himself on the defensive end when he's not in foul trouble. So I've really liked the way he's been doing that. And I think that in that game itself, he came up with some big steals and big plays. So that's what I like to see. If guys aren't going to be big scorers and win us the game like that, I love to see when they're good on the defensive end and affecting the game in a different way.
Yeah, and I haven't checked the steals leaders in a while, but I know he was at least up there, like top 5. So I'm assuming he's still up there. He doesn't usually go a game where he doesn't get a steal or even a block. But it's pretty crazy to think that in a Breakers win, Matt Mooney and Parker Jackson-Cartwright both scored less than 15 points, and just shows that we don't need them to step up. We have other guys who can do it, and that just showed with Meninga, Lopez. They can all contribute to Breakers win.
And that's what we talked about last week, right, Logan, and the week before. We talked about other players stepping up and the way that all the players can play together. I think it's a massive thing in a team full of players that are ball dominant. I think even Sam Mennenga would consider himself a ball dominant center. The way he has the ball, the way he needs the pick and roll, the pick and pop, and the ball down low in the post. I think Lopez also, he can affect the game without the ball, but I think the players that we've got, to be able to use them effectively, we haven't seen that enough this year from the Breakers. And I think that's been one of the most disappointing parts of the Breakers season, has been the way we've used all of the players and combined together with them. So it was really pleasing to see, like you just said, about how Mooney had less than 15, Parker had less than 15, but they were able to work and feed the hot hand and feed who was having the best game at that time. And that's ultimately what consisted of our victory, right? If you think about it, that's how we got the win, with that much pressure coming from other areas, not just our top 2 guys in Mooney and PJC.
Yeah, and I think those other scorers that ultimately come from a much more um much more comfortable and more systematic offense. We saw the pick and roll with Meninga and Mooney work well. We saw better ball movement in the early uh, parts of the game where we gave it to Taco and he dished it straight back. We talked about that last week with ball movement and off ball cuts, etc. I think this game was a big improvement in those areas.
All right, let's head into. Oh, also one last thing about Sam Mennenga. I think the way he's going and the form he's in, it gives us a lot of options moving forward next year. Obviously, we've got Sam Mennenga contracted for a 2-year deal, as well as Taco Fall. which sigh for me personally about Taco Fall being here for another year. But Sam Mennenga being there for another year, the way he's playing at the moment, it's shown that we can be effective with him in the lineup and he can be a big part of the Breakers. And I'm liking the way he's heading into next season if we can figure out the way around him, if that makes sense. But let's move on to the most recent game from Saturday night, away at South East Melbourne Phoenix in Melbourne. A really, really disappointing performance if you look at the whole game. I think there was parts here and there. I'll go through my takeaways instantly. I think we were poor, obviously a poor start, awful start. You can't win basketball games when you start like the way we did. I think we were down 16-2, I think it was, which is just, you just can't do that in basketball. I'm really disappointed with the way that we probably finished as well in that fourth quarter. I think the second and third quarter, there was lots of bright sparks, the way we got back into the game, showed resilience, but I'm still just really disappointed. And in a game that we could be winning, we could have won, could have forced some pressure on the teams above us. We failed miserably, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think on the defensive end, we can't go a whole game with high intensity on defense, and we always lack like the effort at some points during the games. And if you go back to at the time where we got Taco and Freddie Gillespie left, that's been the big turning point for me. And I think having Freddie Gillespie in the team, that was when we were at our best defensively. And it kind of gives me PTSD. I kind of wish we had him back right now, and it would be interesting to see if we still had the key defense we had in the early rounds of the season.
Another big performance from Kareem Lopez. I was really impressed with the way he shot the ball, 4 from 7 from 3, which was really impressive because if that's something that he can add to his game, he is going to be a massive threat in the NBA. I love his effort. I love the way he rebounds the ball. He's effective on the defensive end, more than just what the box score will show. He does get steals, does get blocks, but it's the effort plays that I like. It's the getting around screens, getting under screens, contesting shots. We often see him switch onto bigs, also guards. He guards some small guards as well. So I think his growth this year has been massive. He's got another year in the NBL before he probably goes into the NBA draft next year. But man, I've just been really impressed with his year to become a player from being 17 years old to become a player he's playing like a seasoned veteran sometimes in the NBL. He's 17 and he's got a massive future. If he can keep shooting the three ball at a high clip like he was in this game, man, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with next year. And I'm really excited that we've got him for another year to be able to grow, to see him grow and go into the NBA draft next year.
Yeah, and the energy plays, he'd be throwing down those dunks all game, and I think that's exactly what the Breakers need at some point. Just bring up the energy levels. We see after something like that happens, everyone else kind of gets into it. Matt Mooney, another one who just brings up the intensity, gets all the other guys involved, and just hypes them up.
Yeah, I definitely agree. What do you think about Mooney on the offensive end in this game against Southeast Melbourne? Because for once again, wasn't Parker's game offensively. I like the way he was facilitating the ball, giving the ball to other players. But for me, Mooney had to step up in this game, and he did. But I think it was the defensive end that we failed on.
Yeah, he tried his best, and you can't fault him for not trying. He's always going to go out there and put his heart out on the floor and not going to leave anything left in the tank. But I think I agree. The defensive end just too many errors to that meant good offense wasn't going to do it for us. We have to be good on defensive end as well.
What are the work-ons for the future games? Obviously, there's only 3 or 4 left. Our season is all but over. I'm going to say it's over already because we're not winning the last 3 or 4 games, and it's not going to go
Yeah.
our way. But let's talk about what are your work-ons for the last couple of games, and then I'll go through mine.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see whether Coach Cop goes with like bringing in new players or keeping the same team he has and just seeing where it can get to. But I think if we have the same guys on the floor, just continuing to gel as a team and just see like what a healthy and full strength side will look like. PJC, Mooney, Taco, Mennenga too, obviously, he's kind of made us all aware that he is a pretty big part of the team. So having them four all healthy on the floor, like what does that look like for a Breakers side, and how are they going to play compared to other top teams in the league like Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree, and it'll be interesting to see what he does with the lineup, and that moves straight into my point. Instantly, I think as the season's done, grow the development players. The season is done. Focus on the young guys, grow the young guys, see what they can do the last couple of games in the season. They've got nothing to lose. Guys like Kaya Isaac, Alex McNaught, who's been in the roster for 4 years now and hasn't seen enough game time for me to be able to see that he's developing as a player. I mean, Max Darling, we've seen Max Darling get more minutes this year, but they have to play the young guys. I think Carlin Davidson, the minutes he's played this year, he's been exceptional. And whether he's fit or not, I'm not sure. Sean Bairstow, we've just got to play the guys. I'd like to see Taiwinia play and all of those players, because what are we going to lose? We've seen at full strength what the Breakers can do, or maybe not full strength, but a heavy to high strength Breakers side. We've seen what they do. They haven't been performing heavily for the Breakers. So I'd love to see what the young guys can do. And I think Coach Kopp owes that to the development players as the season hasn't gone to plan. He needs to give them the opportunity to show, because when Carlin Davidson's got minutes this year, when Sean Bairstow's got minutes, they've shown glimpses of what they can do. So I'd like to see them go and play big minutes. It doesn't have to start. They don't have to play 25 plus minutes, but it's about getting them all enough game time to become good players for next year's NBL season. Would you like to see that as well, or?
Yeah, well, I agree. I agree with the game time. You know, we've seen like the likes of Sean Bairstow come in, and after a few mistakes or something he doesn't do on the defensive end, that's when Coach Kopp will, take him out and kind of lose trust in them for a little bit. And I think that's what we've seen with the likes of Davidson as well. You know, he was in there for the defense, and it obviously wasn't working, so he took him straight out.
Let's talk about the upcoming games. This weekend, we got the Bullets in Christchurch on Friday. Another game, another stupid game in a different place in New Zealand other than Spark Arena. I know they have to do it, but they don't have to do it to the extremities that they do. I'm really annoyed with this, actually, Logan, because we just probably won't win in Christchurch. They might prove me wrong, but it still doesn't change what I think about playing away in New Zealand. I think they need to do it twice a season. But we've played, if you think about it now, we've played in Wellington, we've played in Christchurch now, we've played in New Plymouth, and it's just, there's too many differences to Spark Arena. They just have to play at Spark Arena. You see what it did Spark Arena last Thursday when we beat Tasmania, but I would have just liked to see us play another game at Spark Arena. But for the game against the Bullets in Christchurch this Friday, what do you think the key matchups are? I've got a couple in mind, but what do you think the key ones are?
Well, for me, it's Tyro Harrison if he's playing versus whoever we decide to throw at him. Obviously, just a week or two ago, we saw a Taco Harrison matchup, and Harrison kind of got the better of him. But it'll be interesting to see after a outstanding Mennenga game whether Mennenga can get the best of Harrison. As he can shoot that three ball, and Harrison doesn't really like coming out of the paint as much. He's kind of like Taco, big body, not that mobile. But I think PJSC is in for a big game here, and I'm calling it now. He's going to go for 20 plus. Although I know you spoke about Max Darling always guarding the other team's best player a week or so ago. So if Casey Prather is healthy, obviously he missed the game on the weekend, so I'm not sure if he will play. But if he does, how do you think that matchup will go with Darling and Prather?
Yeah, that's my number one matchup this week. For the game is Darling against Prather. I heard on commentary last night, I think it was Brisbane last night, or maybe the night before when they played, that he'll be back for this game. He's likely to suit up, which is a big in for the Brisbane Bullets. They've looked quite lost without him, I think. And I think it's just huge, the Darling matchup. It might not be Darling, and if it's not, so be it. But for me, I think it'll be Max Darling that guards him. And somehow we've just got to stop Casey Prather. Every team, we've talked about this so many times, Logan, every team's best player has their game of their lives against the Breakers. And I'm expecting no different this Friday in Casey Prather. So that's why it's my number one matchup, because the way Max Darling has to defend Casey Prather, we need everyone firing on all cylinders defensively, all switched on, all communicating to be able to stop Casey Prather, who's in NBL first team consideration for me. I think he's been one of the best players this year. And then another matchup for me is Mitch Norton against Matt Mooney. For me, that is just a huge matchup because of the beef in the last game between the two, the foul trouble. Mooney was in foul trouble and Norton waved him away and stuff like that. There was just lots of beef happening in that game. So I think that's a big matchup, as he'll probably look to antagonize Mooney a little bit. So that's my big matchup. What about Adelaide away on Sunday evening, Logan? Who have you got on those ones?
Yeah, well, this is going to be a really fun game. My two favorite teams to watch in the league. I think it's pretty clear the two big matchups. Obviously, Kendrick Davis and PJC, and then Taco versus Montrez. I love Montrez. I love Kendrick Davis. Watching them is so fun, but obviously seeing Kendrick and PJC, who are both similar type of players, will be quite a battle. PJC will have to get himself back into this league. Out being out a few weeks before he was suspended. He was in MVP talks. If he wants the league to, get his name up there again, talking about him, he's gonna have to come out and have a big one.
The PJC Kendrick Davis is a massive matchup because I look at this at a bit of a different kind of lens on it, because when at the start of the season, in the first couple of weeks, the first 6 weeks, PJC was the front runner for MVP. It was his MVP to lose for me. I think it was heavily on the Breakers win and loss record because we were doing so well. He was starring and we were playing so good, and that's why PJC was seen as one of the best players in the league. I don't think it's changed, the fact that he's not one of the best players in the league, but the way that he's handled himself in the last 6 weeks has been slightly disappointing. Obviously, he's been suspended for some of that time, but that's more what I mean. The suspension, it was frustrating for Breakers fans seeing him get suspended, such an important player for us. But the matchup against Kendrick is such a unique one. Two small guards, two heavy ball-playing, scoring guards, passionate people as well. So I'm interested to see how that goes. I think it's a big one because PJC will kind of want to stamp his mark, especially in Adelaide. It's a tough place to go. So PJC, if he wants to stand up and show that he is one of the best players in the league, I feel like he has to do it this weekend in PGC. In Adelaide, sorry. Can you give me a prediction for the Bullets game in Christchurch on Friday and then the Adelaide game on Sunday?
Bullets game, I think it'll be a Breakers win, 105-99. And in Adelaide, I'm gonna tip for Adelaide here. I think it's gonna be 107-104.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you've just said. I think we will scrape through in Christchurch. I think it'll heavily depend on how effective Casey Prather is and how injured he is. And it's the same thing about Tyro Harrison, whether he plays or not will be a big in or out for the Bullets. So I'll go a Breakers win in Christchurch. And then away in Adelaide, I think they're playing for the playing spot. They're playing for whatever spot they can get to. And I think it's a massive matchup for them. They won't take us lightly, and I think they'll go into that one as favourites, and I think they'll get the job done in that one, which will leave us 1-1 this weekend, which will be slightly disappointing. Obviously, that will be our season done after that. There'll be no coming back. Who is your one under the pump person this week? One person who's under pressure for this weekend's games?
Yeah, for me, it's probably Taco. He's been outshined by Mennenga these last few games, so he'll need to step up and prove that he can be a focal point of the Breakers offensive. He came here with quite a lot of controversy. You know, he kind of made his way into the team slowly, didn't really have much of an impact. He did a few good games, and now he's kind of dropped off a little bit, so I think he's going to have to step up again. How about
Yeah,
you?
I completely agree. Taco's also my under the pump. I think For me personally, since I've been so against this Taco 4 move. I've been so against the ownership for what they've done and how they've broken up the roster and everything that's been with Taco 4 this year. I've been really disappointed with how the club's handled the situation and how they handled Freddie Gillespie and stuff. I don't need to bang on about that, but for me, in these last 3 or 4 games, it is so important that Taco 4 has big games. It is so important he at least shows that he can work in the NBL, because I think he's shown glimpses that he can work in the NBL, but not enough for me to be confident going into next year with Sam Mennenga and Taco 4 that we have a good center combination at the Breakers. I'm not convinced yet, and that's why he's my under the pump person, because I think he has to have some big games. And the thing, Logan, that I think he has to do is defensively, he has to step up. We know he's going to get a couple of blocks a game. We know that, but he has to get some defensive effort plays. We've got to see some rebounds. We've got to see some effort. I want to see him dive on the floor and grab a steal, something like that. I want to see some sort of effort from Taco, not just slowly jogging up in the court and chucking it into the high post. I want to see some effort from him. So I'm really looking to him for a big game. But let's get into another segment that we've got that we started last week. Obviously, last week, my guess who was Sean Long. I had 4 questions for you, Logan. You didn't unfortunately get that, so we're 0 from 1 on the podcast. So let's see if we can change that. Logan, have you got a guess who for me?
Yep, so I've got one for you in the first question or statement, I would say. So this guy played in the 2022 season.
Ooh, yep.
He averaged 12 points and 8 rebounds.
2022. Just trying to think about 2022.
Yeah, it was quite hard on the spot. As I should know.
2022 was Rupert, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was. Continue.
Okay, the third one is he's from Cleveland.
Oh, he's from Cleveland. Ooh.
Any guesses?
I don't know. Do you have another one?
One? One more.
Do I get enough? Do I get one guess? Do I get one guess now?
I think. Yeah, go for one guess now.
I hate these being put on the spot. I'm like mind blanking it.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is trying to forget the 2022 roster. If I had the 2022 roster in front of me, I'd probably get it. But 12 points. So that's actually pretty hefty. 2022.
Do you want the last one or?
I've got a good idea, but you say the last question.
Okay. This guy is bald.
He's bald. Oh, Derek Pardon.
Yep. Derek Pardon.
Yes. We're 1 from 1 on the podcast. That feels good. But that's good. I'm glad that Derek Pardon, he is a guy I miss. What do you remember about Derek Pardon? Because he was a heck of a player for us.
Yeah, he was. I love Derek Pardon. You know, he always brought those energy plays. He threw it down every game, you know, catching lobs. I kind of miss him.
Oh, that team, that 2022 team with like Barry Brown, Jarrell Brantley, that was one of the best Breakers teams I think we've ever had. If I look back at it now, that is definitely the most fun team to watch we had. I remember that game for Dunk. Oh, Barry Brown. Oh, I wish we had those players back now and not Taco Fall. Yeah. We've still got Taco Fall, but that'll do us for this edition of the Breakers Breakdown podcast. Massive thanks to the Basketball Fix for letting us host this podcast and giving us the opportunity to talk about our beloved Breakers. And make sure you check out all of the social media accounts. There's a Facebook page, there's Instagram, there's Spotify, YouTube, definitely. And make sure you check out the latest Beyond the Buzzer podcast with media personality and NBL overtime host, that is, Felix Van Hoff. Make sure you check that one out. Leave this video or podcast on YouTube, Spotify, a thumbs up. And until next time, we'll see you on that next episode next week.